Well, hello, I'm Joe Walensky, and this is another episode of the Digital Accessibility Podcast, the people behind the process, where I get the chance to talk to many of the people that are involved in the accessibility profession. And today I am talking to Donna Bungard. Hello, Donna, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am speaking to you from an extremely historically rainy day in Bellingham, Washington, which is about 90 miles north of Seattle. Where are you talking to us from?
I am from rural New Hampshire. I'd say the town, but truth be told, no one knows where it is. So I live up in the woods and we are above freezing, which is really exciting right now.
Well, I'm really glad to have you here for this little discussion to find out how you found your way into the accessibility world. But a good place to start is maybe talk a little bit about what you're up to now.
That sounds great. I am the Director of Accessibility over at Indeed, but my scope has actually recently changed where I get to not only represent the disability community, but other job seekers facing barriers and work really closely on our skills first hiring discussion on focusing on what people can do and not what they can't do. I always joke a lot about when I talk about skills first hiring about my husband's impression of my chocolate chip cookies. Now, I can bake a lot of things and I'm frankly pretty darn good. But for whatever reason, my husband hates all of my chocolate chip cookies. If I were to talk to you casually in conversation, I probably wouldn't start with, well, I'm not great with the chocolate chip cookies. No, I would, we would talk about, what's our favorite cake, what's our favorite cup, whatever it is. So with that, I really get to focus on what people can do and what the disability community can bring to organizations, and how focusing on their skills and their lived experience and all of these wonderful things enhances their job performance, and just allows people to the right talent to get matched with the right role better.
Well, I'd definitely like to hear more about the work that you're doing, but one of the things I like to do with this program is to kind of push back and also find out where things started from you. So, what were some of the milestones in your background that brought you to the work that you're doing today?
Really great question. And truth be told, I've kind of was born for this work. Growing up, I was considered the only one in my household without a disability. Um, Now, I was later identified as learning disabled. I've kind of coined the phrase mysteriously neurodivergent, but truth be told, hang out with me a little while and it probably wouldn't be great deal of mystery where I'd probably fall into that particular field. But even with learning disability, I was considered the one without a disability because we had mobility barriers, visual barriers, audio barriers, and so on and so forth. So because of that, frankly, it wasn't until much later in life that I realized that disability, everybody didn't already understand that disability is normal. And that came, I had been a developer and designer back when that was the same job. And all of these more technical roles. And then I started, following my curiosity as I usually do. And I ended up in a strategy role. And I was talking to the head of accessibility. And she said something about it being the right thing to do. And I had was like, that's silly. The, these are our clients, these are our customers, this is the population. And we started talking, and she's like, but you realize that not everybody understands. I say it's the right thing to do because that's what people understand. She's like, not everybody understands how big the disability community is and how many people are involved in the disability community beyond just the person with the disability. They have partners, they have children, they they have friends or parents. Like there's a whole bunch of people who are noticing when companies or groups are being accessible or not. It's not just, and I say just kind of lightly, up in here in the US, it's more than 28%. I believe the EU was more than 27%. I mean, we're talking almost a third of the population are people who identify with a disability, plus all the people in their lives. It's a huge group. So, of course, we need to be accessible. And she's like, yeah, but people don't realize that. At which point I said, oh, well, that's foolish. Let's change that. Um, And like many things in my life, I decided, oh, I want to change things. So I went off and I got certifications and I started shifting my career more and more into the accessibility space because, yes, I can do the technical side, but I've been a long time out of the coding world. Nobody actually wants me to tell you what code to do to fix it anymore, but I can help see the problems, describe the problems, understand why it's important. What is the strategy for organizations behind it? And had been moving more and more and more into that space just because people don't always notice. I mean, throughout history, disability had always been hidden. It had always been in the back. It had always been things people didn't want to talk about. Or you just have some things, whether it be my sister's hearing loss or my, mysterious neurodivergence that are just not apparent. And all of these things led up to so much confusion that still exists right now within society and companies and all of this that we just need people to help, like me or others to just start talking about it, to just have that conversation and stop treating it like it's something other or they're these other silent people or this smaller group. And that's what it is that my whole career has just been about following curiosity and going, oh, well, I can do that. And pushing myself forward in that general direction.
Well, you shared a bit about your lived life experience and and how you started to get involved in it with some trainings, but maybe you could expand a little bit in that latter aspect in terms of kind of what you needed to do to prepare yourself for this area professionally. People come at it from a lot of different directions. Sometimes it's formal, sometimes it's less so, and it's always interesting to, hear the stories about what it took for you to feel like you were confident about, moving forward as a professional.
That's another, yeah, it's a challenging piece because a lot of us, especially when you're leaning on your lived experience, you're like, oh, well, is this comprehensive enough? Like, and frankly, the sense of enough is always something like as somebody with a learning disability, but I was never considered disabled in my household as a kid because, it was a barrier, but I could work around it in most things with school. It was, was I disabled enough to count? It's like, was it disabled enough? And I want to just stay out there that if you have a barrier, you don't wait until it's insurmountable to acknowledge that you have a barrier. It's a barrier. If there's a disability, it's a disability. There's no sense of enough going on here. And with that, that was a challenge for me because it was always like, oh, when do I know enough to start talking about this and like really start pushing myself out there? Um, but then again, I also don't stay quiet easily. So it was easier for me to just be like, well, I'll just say it anyway. And if somebody corrects me, I'll apologize and learn. Um, and I think that understanding that apologize and learn is really important because yes, I did because I have the technical background. I went off and I got my IAAP certifications. I'm the CPWA, which is a combination of the web accessibility specialist and the accessibility professional of core competencies. Um, I think I said that second one, the acronym wrong, but I think
I
the,
get it
the gist is
confused too.
there. Yeah, I'm not going to go over it right now. I'll spend more of the conversation talking about acronyms. But my point is that I went ahead and I did go get those, and they were very helpful, especially when I was talking through and doing some testing. And I found some other courses out there to help me improve my testing. And then some of it was homegrown of I'm going to play with this tool and figure it out. Um, because my thought behind that was, okay, this assistive technology, not everybody who uses it is an expert. It was like, for example, I self-taught a screen reader. I used the tutorial, but I self-taught it because it's like if you know, a lot of people my age or later, our vision fades. I'm sitting here in bifocals, but some people experience that in a more profound way. So not everyone's going to be that expert right to start with these things. So can I clumsily make it through with my knowledge? Because if I were a novice just adjusting to a newer technology, maybe that would be a scenario too, and maybe that journey needs to be represented as well. So, not in an isolated bubble, always work with, people who understand the technology and bring in native users as much as possible, but to still understand it myself and being able to check things and look at things and just listen to that. And then informally, I also do a lot of listening to books. My personal preference is I read fiction, I listen to nonfiction, and I always listen to it at 2x speed, so my mind is less likely to wander. Um, and I listen to a lot of books, and I try to listen to authentic voices telling their stories. And this could be long form books, or it could be the New York Times, I think it was, years ago, put out About Us, which was a series of essays. And just listen to different stories from the community about their lived experience. And in truth, I've done this with countless other groups as well, of whether it be nonfiction listening or reading authors, fictional stories from authors who identify as a part of an underrepresented group. Whatever the piece, I've always tried to listen to their voices, and because I have a wide range of experience, but that's only my experience. And I need to understand that, you know, neurodivergent girl who grew up, you know, let's just say non-affluent, rural, and learning disabled with is going to be a very different experience than people of other groups, whether they be here in the US or globally. And our access to resources, people who understood us, and our needs, people who could meet those needs, that's all going to be changed and different depending on the individual's lived story. So it's really important if you're doing the self-taught part to get out there and go to events, talk to the community, listen to books, read books, whatever, take in content however you feel comfortable, but that other authentic voice. Because I think that the technology is amazing, but technology is moving at the speed of light. And in order for us to understand why this is all important and keep rooted, we need to understand the voices behind the data.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that neurodivergent part of your story. To me, that's one of the areas that it still seems to be a challenge even for progressive accessibility organizations to be able to address and understand how to best support their customers. I've been involved in accessibility for a long time, and I feel like it was only recently that particular area elevated itself to a regular part of our conversation. And yeah, I was just wondering, based on your experience, live life or work life, how you feel that neurodiversity, is best uh, addressed by accessibility professionals.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, I think it's coming down a lot to people are paying attention right now. Business Insider recently did a query of Gen Z, and 53% identified as neurodivergent. Um, I think accessibility professionals and all professionals in general need to be more aware of where neurodiversity comes into the conversation in general, and that it's never going to be the same for two people. I mean, again, no disability, no life experience is the same for two people. I mean, we're all so different. You and I could each have a vanilla ice cream cone and probably have a slightly different experience. Um, it's a different piece of everything's different. So there's that piece of it. In terms of building it in, I think we live in a world of distractions. And, you know, whether you're somebody who can filter those distractions or hyper focus in on one thing and ignore those distractions or get caught up in them, the truth of the matter is, for a lot of people, neurotypical or neurodivergent, they can lead to a lot of overwhelm. How often do we mindlessly grab our phones or have things like this? It's just things are becoming a habit where there's just a lot of stuff. So I think that professionals helping other professionals focus in on what, wh- which stuff is going to help you. And for me, I know that I actually like having my Slack notifications and all of these things going on because unless I am in a deep work mode, switching channels in my brain helps keep me motivated to go to the next one. And that's how I function. But I know a lot of people who they need to be like, okay, need my instructions in writing. I need to shut off all my notifications. I will be back in 2 hours. I'm not ghosting anybody. I'm just getting my work done. Thank you. And that's awesome. It comes down to understanding what people need to work. And then with that, when we're thinking about customers and technologies and things like that, it's how customizable can it be to make it work for the person? I have an astigmatism. Most of us who have an astigmatism find dark mode, well, sometimes it's actually painful for me, but dark mode is really, really hard. It's not comfortable for a lot of us with an astigmatism. I don't know the science behind it, but I know I'm not alone. Um, but for nearly everybody else I've ever spoken to, dark mode is a more comfortable way of working. So, like, are you giving options there? Are you giving options for, and I say that's a simple one, but truth be told, it's not simple. There are so many design systems and opportunities out there, but and frankly, if somebody wants it, they can just set their device to change colors as well. So I get that. I had a point. Oh yeah. But whatever it is it's about allowing people to kind of customize their experience as much as possible. And that's the beauty of where we are with technology, is that we have the ability to make it so people can choose their own adventure. How much motion is on a page? What are the colors? If it's your work style, what is your meeting times? When can you shut off your notifications and have deep work time? What times are, what time zones are best? And frankly, this doesn't only work for your neurodivergent group. I recently read something where they called neurodivergent employees the canaries in the coal mine. Because just because you're more sensitive to it does not necessarily mean it's only impacting this group. So when you have that flexibility, you're also helping caregivers. You're also helping, I don't know, everybody. Whatever this is, you're helping people adjust their work and life together to be able to perform their best in both.
Yeah, that was very helpful. There are a couple of nuggets in there that I hadn't really thought about before, so I'm always learning myself about these things. Yeah, as we kind of finish up here, I'm always interested in hearing if there's, new things on the horizon that you're excited about, any maybe initiatives with your work or outside of that, new challenges that you might want to share that our viewers and listeners might want to hear about.
I think I think I'd be remiss, somebody who works in technology and always has, to not say the that AI is always on my mind right now. And how can we center this technology to be that assistive device, regardless if a person identifies with a disability, because it really is an assistive device, and framing that as assistive technology so that we can continue to mainstream assistive technologies while being aware and cautious of some of the problematic behaviors we've seen um, across the industry. There was always, we've seen things of, automated responses on social media going wild. Um, so I'm really interested to see how the disability community continues to not only adapt with the technology, but help the technology adapt society to them. Because I think we're at a powerful moment, and I think we have the opportunity to do something cool.
Well, yeah, thanks for sharing some of that. And it's been great to have this chance to chat with you about uh, your journey through accessibility and look forward to hopefully meeting you in person at some point.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot, Donna.
Thank you. Have a great one.